Can I wax lyrical about Free Solo?
Please do.
To put it mildly, Alex Honnold is a bit of a card. Living out of his family's van for the last decade or so, he has had one mission and one mission only: to free climb, or specifically free solo, the world's most difficult rock faces. For almost every member of the human race, bar a handful of notable exceptions, the pursuit of free climbing remains one of, if not the most baffling endeavours imaginable, ascending thousands of feet of rock without the aid of any safety equipment whatsoever. It's no surprise that the great majority of proponents of this pastime are either expired or broken beyond repair. As renowned climber and El Capitan expert Tommy Caldwell puts it, it's like an Olympic sport where absolute perfection is required to attain the pinnacle of gold and everything else is dead. Alex Honnold has a reputation within the climbing community for being peerless among his generation, but even those who revere his skills the most seem concerned by his goal of the last 9 years, which is to become the first person to free solo El Capitan. It is this goal, attempted in the spring of 2017, with which Jimmy Chin and Elizabeth Vasarhelyi, I'm sorry if I've massacred your name, Liz.
I'm not sure what... It kind of looks like a Hindi name or something, but then it makes me think it's maybe like Greek or Macedonian, somewhere like that. But
I have no idea. But Vasarhelyi, anyway. I'm going for Elizabeth Vasarhelyi and hoping that if I say it quickly enough, she doesn't notice. It's with this that their documentary concerns itself. I'd somewhat prematurely formed a mental image and incredibly detailed assessment of Honnold's personality long before watching the movie, which was a bit silly of me, as Honnold confounds such judgment at just about every turn. It should have been obvious that there would be very little typical about someone consumed by such a pursuit, and what we learn of Alex is genuinely fascinating. He is, by all accounts, a down-to-earth, forthright, and above all, composed young man, and what comes across primarily in terms of character is his frank assessment of just about every aspect of his life. Honnold is honest to a fault, but not in the abrasive way that rude people who self-describe as straight shooters own. Rather than gung-ho or flippant, he comes across as someone who has genuine understanding of the risks involved, born of introspection and qualitative assessment of what is important in life from his own perspective. I was surprised at how quickly Honnold put me at ease with his choices, though that's not to say the filmmakers don't aim to put our faith as an audience to the test in the latter part of this movie. The film does a great job of balancing understanding both Alex and the mountain, and somewhat atypically it doesn't adopt the mechanism of facing them off as mismatched adversaries. Chin and Vasarhelyi do a fantastic job of keeping the technicalities to a minimum in explaining the magnitude of what Honnold hopes to achieve, in the process attaining the documentarian's holy grail of separating interest from topic. Audiences with no investment in rock climbing as a pursuit will still find the approach engaging and rewarding, hopefully coming to an understanding of Honnold and El Capitan along the way. Which is not to say there are no missteps, both for the movie and for Honnold as it happens. As a narrative tactic, engaging in Alex's love life in an attempt at drawing his emotional detachment into stark relief proves vulnerable to our opinion of his girlfriend Sani. And let's just say, I'm not the only one in our house to have found her an almost constant irritant. Rather than introducing drama, it really only served to subtly undermine the understanding I had forged of Honnold's character, calling into question once more his sanity, especially when the woman in question causes him to sustain not one but two serious injuries. Still, your own mileage with Sani may vary, and I certainly wouldn't let it put anyone off engaging with the movie. The main event, of course, and the very reason for the documentary's existence, is Honnold's eventual attempt at the climb itself. Despite having spent some time climbing in my late teens and early 20s, I have never maintained much interest in it, and I was completely unfamiliar with Honnold's story. As such, and having had no prior knowledge of the documentary's existence, I was completely unaware of what the outcome of his attempt was to be. The film certainly does a very good job of highlighting the dangers at a number of key points along the route, and we see Honnold fail each of them at least once, sometimes numerously, while attached to a rope during his preparations. Chin and Vasarhelyi's best achievement turns out to be maintaining suspense, and I don't mind telling you that on more than one occasion throughout, I felt physically sick, and that was watching on a TV. Goodness knows what cinema audiences experienced. As the attempt is underway, we even see members of Chin's film crew unable to watch as they document, and while the cynical might have anticipated some cheap injection of drama, their reactions to Alex's ascent never feel less than genuine. I won't spoil the outcome, but Free Solo is a fantastic piece of filmmaking that takes an audience on more of an emotional roller coaster than any number of dramas, thrillers or horrors I can mention in the last few years, and I recommend it wholeheartedly. Drew, what say ye?
Largely the same. Yeah, I had never heard of this guy. I knew nothing about watching the film. I had never heard of the film until a couple of weeks ago when I heard it described in another podcast I listened to as having a second half that was very...
scary?
Well, yes, but kind of palm moistening.
Yes.
Hand sweating, you know, which I didn't feel, but it's like, it's maybe just not me. But I think my overriding feeling through this film was nope. Nope, 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 nope. You mentioned the sort of the potentially abrasive character of the climber. I've forgotten his name already. Alex?
Alex, yeah.
Alex, yeah, that's on it. That, you know, he's sort of no nonsense. He is like brutally honest, but it's, for the most part, you're right, it isn't in that sort of just brusque, rude way or trying to excuse not being nice to other people. He mentioned, I think, that his father, or his mother mentions that his father probably was Asperger's. Maybe there's a wee bit of an element of that to his character, I think. And yeah, he's maybe a little callous at times because the way he talks about having Sani around at first, it's basically like he's having a girlfriend as a pet.
Yeah, which we have to assume was not his intention and how he come across. And I laughed out loud when he first described it. She doesn't take up much room. Yeah. It's somewhat unfortunate. Unfortunate, but I think if that comment had come later in the movie after we better understand his character, it might have played a little bit better. But yeah, it doesn't come across well initially.
It doesn't paint in the best light at that point in the film. It's certainly. I don't think I consider her an irritant, certainly not to the degree that you seem to have done. But there were elements that were bothering me about her, which is like she was, for instance, if you are in a relationship and you end up with children, right? Planned or unplanned, then you're basically required. It's your responsibility to change your lifestyle and to look after children. That's your duty, right? These are the consequences. You have to deal with them. At this point, they don't have any children. There's a very young relationship as well. But she's already talking about like, well, are you going to like stop climbing because I say I love you and stuff? I'm like, yeah, you don't get to do that though, because you went into this relationship eyes wide open, knowing exactly that this is what this man cares about, this is what this man will go do.
That's precisely what irritated me most about her, is that her constant attempts to inject herself into his thought process when she must have known from the very start what was happening. And also, and I don't want to talk about her too much because it's not a crucial part of the film, but
and it's not her story either.
No, it's not her story at all. And also, do you know what? She might be a perfectly lovely person. I don't know. I don't want to cast him in aspersions, but there seemed this desperate attempt on her part to convince him that she was a bigger part of his life than she actually was. And you see it amongst some of his fellow climbers. When Caldwell is talking about her initially, he closes on a slightly more favourable comment, but he pretty much you don't have to read too far between the lines to think this guy just thinks, what is he doing with her? This is absolutely, this is a distraction which, for the stakes at which we are playing here, make no mistake about it, this is a relationship which is going to get him killed.
Potentially, yeah. And you see the number of people that have died, and when you need absolute, you can't ever have your mind distracted.
No, you can't make a single mistake.
Yeah, but which potentially leads for a very lonely existence, though. So you can, but he's like maybe just like for his welfare while he's still climbing, it's perhaps best not to be in this relationship.
I think what's most interesting about what they've done with her characters is that is the part of him which I found the most difficult to reconcile. Not his desire to mount the climb, because by the end of the film, I feel like we kind of. You're a bit more at peace with why it is he wanted to attempt it. You might not necessarily 100% understand it, but I think you can relate to what it is he's saying. Whereas I found it impossible to reconcile his adoption of her as another half, given the circumstances of his pursuit and his talk about the warrior spirit and focusing yourself on something to a point of perfection at the exclusion of all else. This just didn't ring true with that relationship. It's just really, really odd, really bizarre, but
At the same time, though, I had similar thoughts, but I was very aware that in all those supposed intimate moments, there was a camera person there filming them.
Yeah, 100%. I think
so
it was
that
obviously
really changed the dynamic of a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And force people to behave in a way that they might not otherwise behave. Clearly.
Yeah, because had it even been like just kind of fixed cameras left in their personal spaces, at which point a lot of documentaries done like that, there's a good chance that the
you'll catch an off-guard moment.
Yeah, the subjects will eventually sort of stop noticing their existence, stop thinking about the existence, will relax, will be more natural. I was very, very aware through all of those things, including like the moment where she's saying goodbye to him and waking up to kiss him goodbye on the day he's going to do the climb. And there's a camera person sitting filming them. I'm like, that's just weird.
Yeah.
And yes, also that makes that not a true representation, but I guess that's how they chose to film it, so you can't really do anything about it now.
But overall, as a documentary,
it's fascinating. As with all such things, and obviously in this case, the risk is very much his. Because I had no idea what the result was going to be, so I won't say, because I didn't know anything about him or the film going in. Best way to be, I think. But obviously, if this person's free climbing, then the risk is very much the free climbers, because there really is nothing holding them. Whereas the camera people do have ropes holding them. But still, I'm always aware of these things. Like, you've seen like someone climbing up a mountain. Like, yeah, but I want to see the documentary universe. I always want to see the people carrying the cameras up mountains, and they're not just carrying their iPhone up or something. They're proper film cameras. They're huge, and they're taking them up mountains. Or even if you've got ropes on, still that's pretty impressive. So that's, for me, that's the only thing. I would like to see a bit more of like a meta documentary of just a wee bit, perhaps. In the 2 hour running time, they could have fitted 10 minutes in probably of just like the difficulties of actually following him up. And I know that's not the story they were telling, but I personally would have liked to have seen that. And the only other issue I had with it was that I just thought Marco Beltrami's score was a bit over the top at a few points. It says a bit too... Here was some dramatic music. Boom, boom, boom.
Pretty impressed that they got Marco Beltrami, though.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big name composer, but I kind of feel they went a wee bit OTT with it. Maybe because they managed to get a big name composer.
Yeah, maybe so no one knew actually quite how to rein him in. Yeah, but no, it's... oh, God, do you know what offended me most, though? That bloody Tim McGraw song that closes on over the credits. Awful. That was so out of place. And I mean, this again, I'm sorry to bring it back to this. I immediately thought to myself, I bet bloody Sani picked that. It is such a bum note to end on.
It's a 2018 song. I paid attention to that at the end because I wondered whether it was like had been made for the film, in which case another big name, but it's so cheesy.
I honestly don't know. It is one of those completely on the nose, kind of like utterly unsophisticated achievement songs. It's just, oh my days.
Here are the things you should think.
Yes, a really bum note to end on. But if you can see past Tim McGraw, I really, really enjoyed this, and I would heartily recommend it to anyone, regardless of whether or not you actually have any interest whatsoever in climbing. I think it's just a very interesting portrait of a person and just an incredibly perilous pursuit.
Yeah, I'm sort of thinking about other things I relate to it. I forgot to mention just Yosemite's a particularly appealing place to film in. Yosemite National Park in Northern California. It's just a beautiful place. So it's just a striking looking film too, simply by nature of where it's shot.
Yeah.
So yes, it's like that appeal as well as the actual content of
it'd be hard. It would be hard to not have it look good.
Yes.